Hey friends, it's Christy and I'm so excited to be back with you at My Favorite Things. Today I'm going to be making a card using the brand new Magical Friends stamp set from Bertie Brown. This set is so adorable. Oh my gosh, this is right up my alley. So I have stamped out my images with black licorice hybrid ink on some Nina Solar White cardstock, and I'm going to be coloring with my Copic markers. The first image that I'm going to tackle is the dragon, and I decided to make it every girl's fantasy of a dragon, so it's going to be super sweet and pink. So I'm using RV10 and RV11. I'm laying in some shadows with that RV11, and then the RV10 is actually going to be sort of like a mid-tone because I'm going to let that fade off into the white as the highlight and just color it really nice and soft. So I was super excited to see this stamp set come out because it has kind of like a fairy tale book theme, and it reminds me so much of the Serendipity books, if you're familiar with those. I used to be obsessed with those as a little girl. My favorite ones were the ones with the little girl and the unicorn. I think the unicorn's name was Morgan. It was like Morgan and Me or Morgan Mine or something like that. But there were also ones with dragons and seals and bunny rabbits, and I loved all of them. I collected all of them, and this just took me right back to that place. So I was so excited about this stamp set. The next combination I'm using is BG10, BG11, and BG13. So I'm beginning with that BG13 and kind of emphasizing the scales on the belly, just doing a little quick line of shadow. And then I will quickly blend that out with the BG11, and then the BG10 is going to be my lightest. I'm also going to use these shades to color in the wings and the little, they're not really ears, but the little flaps that are in the place of ears, I guess. Maybe they are ears, I'm not really sure. But all of those little details I'm going to color with this same combination. For the little girl's skin, I'm using E000, E00, and E11. I put a little shadow under her hair with that E11 on the edges of her face and on the bottom of her hands, and then blended out with the E00 and finished with the E000. And then I'll use the RV10 to add some rosy cheeks. I'm super excited that this little girl has curly hair. You don't see that many curly-haired girls represented in stamps, and that is totally why I had to color this image in particular. So I'm coloring her to have a similar hair color to mine. I'm using E25, E27, and E29, and I just put the darkest at the top and toward the back, and then blended kind of down and forward with the mid-tone and then the lightest. I wanted the book to really stand out, so I wanted it to be kind of like a bright pop of color, and I also wanted something that would match the pattern paper that I'm going to be using, so I decided to color it orange, and I'm using YR04, YR07, and YR09. I put the darkest down toward the bottom where her feet are covering up a little bit of it, and then blended up with those three shades. And then I also decided to add in a fourth. I'm going to grab the YR02 just to finish up the top edge of the book. For the centers of the daisies, I used Y15 and Y17, then BG13 to give the petals a little shadow, and I also did the bottom of her shoes with that color. I used YG61 for the leaves and RV17 for the bow in the little girl's hair. For the dragon's horns and scales, I used Y000 and Y11, and then I trimmed all the images out using the matching dies. For my background, I've cut out two panels with the Elegant Rectangle STAX Die-namics, and then one of them I cut apart using the Stitched Scallop Basic Edges. So I'm going to work on the full panel first, and I'm going to blend on some tumbled glass Distress Oxide ink using the Cloud Stencil. And I'm just going to keep turning that so I get some different variations of clouds and blend down that panel until it's pretty full. Then I tapped a little ink on my work surface and did a little splatter detail for some more interest. For the green panels, I'm going to be using some Bundled Sage Distress Oxide ink, and I'm just going to bring that down from the top edge. I'm being a bit more heavy-handed with this first piece because that one's going to be the background, and I wanted it to be just a bit darker so it would look more distant. And then when it comes to the shorter one, I'm just going to be a little bit more light-handed with that. I also cut out 2 treetops from the Trees in the Forest Die-namics. I decided to use the little teardrop shapes, a small and a large. And for those, I'm going to just tap the ink directly onto the little teardrop shape because I wanted it to be a shade darker so I can really pack that ink on. And once I'm happy with that, I'm also going to smoosh a little ink down on my work surface and add some more splatter detail. I originally stamped my sentiment directly on that panel, but I must have pushed down a little too hard over the word hour, so it bled a bit. So I'm going to re-stamp onto a piece of pattern paper, and I'll end up gluing that over top of the sentiment later on. Now I'm going to pop my card base into my MISTI. I'm using Snow Cone cardstock, and I'm going to stamp one of my other favorite images from this set, and it is the little girl riding the dragon and the sentiment that says, "We are invincible together." I just thought that was perfect to go with the outside friendship sentiment. And I did not get a great impression when I stamped down the first time. That's because the images were new, so I just cleaned them off and then re-inked, and I was able to get a much better impression. So now it's time to adhere down my images, and I'm going to take the larger scalped border panel and I'm going to adhere that flat to the card, just making sure that's lined up nice and straight with the bottom edges. And then the second one I added some foam tape to the back of so that I could pop that up for a little bit of added dimension. The little girl and the dragon is going to get foam tape on the area that will be above that first grassy border, but below it it'll just be regular liquid glue. The single daisy, I added some foam tape to pop that up behind the first grassy border, and then the little cluster is going to get adhered flat to that front grassy panel. And then the castle is going to go way up on the hill far in the distance, and I'll pop up the speech bubble as well, and I love all those little sentiments that you can add inside that. I wanted the castle to be kind of hidden behind the trees, just to kind of set it back even farther in the scene and make it look more distant, and that will make more sense with the scale of it being so small in relation to the little girl and the dragon. So I put the little cluster of trees kind of overlapping it a bit, and now I'm just going to add the tree trunks with the little branches right over top. And then I'll take my sentiment strip and adhere that down right over top of the other sentiment. And I actually really like the pop of color that adds right up there, so that was a happy accident. I'll be using 2 more pieces of pattern paper from that Sweet Celebration 6x6. This larger blue polka dot I trimmed down using the A2 Stitch Rectangle Stacks Set 2. And I actually trimmed down the edges of the plaid with that as well, so that I could keep the stitching detail that would match up with the blue panel. So I'm going to adhere that right across the center. Once the glue on that sentiment strip was dry, I can just flip over that panel and trim off the excess so that it matches the shape of the elegant rectangle stacks. And then I've added some foam tape to the back so I can peel off those release papers and line that up right in the center of my card. Make sure it's nice and straight, and then press that down into place. To finish things off, I'm going to grab a little crystal stickles and add that to my dragon's wings and the scales on its belly, and the little ears. And I'm also going to add it to the bow in the little girl's hair and the centers of the daisies as well. I didn't want to get too carried away, but I definitely wanted to have a bit of glitter on such a pretty girly, magical fairy tale card. And that is going to complete my card for today. I'll lift that up to the light so you can see how it sparkles and shines and give you another peek at the inside. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the December edition of Christy Gets Crafty with My Favorite Things. I had a blast working with this stamp set, and I hope that you enjoyed it too. If you did, please be sure to give the video a thumbs up, and you can leave me a comment down below. I love interacting with you guys down there. Subscribe to My Favorite Things for more inspiring videos just like these here on screen. Bye-bye.